Hey people, what is up? Welcome back to our channel once again. It's me, your beautiful QuickSilver 15, back with another video. And today we'll be reviewing Netflix's entry to the gritty superhero type genre series. And if Amazon Prime has The Boys and Invincible, then Netflix has So let's get to it. Let's go over the premise, and I think one of the easiest way to analyze Jupiter's Legacy is to think of it as if the Justice League members have their children, and Superman is having like a midlife crisis. You know, he's questioning his morals and his beliefs, and Batman is a bad guy. Although after having watched the series, you can really tell that Jupiter's Legacy is actually more than just an alternate version of the Justice League, because it does have its own deep mythology, and actually the origin story of the heroes are so much different than the DC counterparts. Although to be fair, some characters do follow the similar tropes to their DC counterparts. For example, the Utopian is exactly Superman. You know, his powers, and you know, his trope as like the ideal or the Boy Scout, the hero of heroes type thing. And Batman is kind of the anti-hero, and that's exactly what Sky Fox, at least in what they show so far. So we actually don't see the real Sky Fox yet. We only see like psychic versions of him for some reason. And yeah, we also have a lot of interesting characters in this series that actually is an amalgamation of multiple DC and Marvel characters, or is actually quite unique to the series. So Jupiter's Legacy is... So we won't go over all the cast of Jupiter's Legacy because it's just so big and so many. It's just in season 1. And it actually follows like a Game of Thrones style storytelling, where you get multiple points of view over the same overreaching story. And of course there are a lot of flashbacks as well. Actually, one of the strong points of this series is it actually gives time to develop each and every one of the characters, although I may say that that is actually part of their weakness as well, because some of the scenes can be drawn out, and although it's just minutes, it feels like they've been talking for hours about this particular thing over and over again, and it can be a bit boring. But that's how it is for a lot of these Netflix series, especially the first few episodes. Actually, Jupiter's Legacy actually picks up the first half of the first episode, so it starts off really slow and then it kind of picks up at the end with a lot of the action, and they actually show the big bad guy immediately, which is like a Darkseid-esque character with the name of Black Star, Dark Star, something like that. But he's essentially Doomsday from the Justice League. So again, the main premise of this story is we got these long-time superheroes. They're now old and they're living in the modern world, and they're starting to question whether their beliefs of not killing and being the standard and not ruling over people and just being an example to live by, and they're starting to question their code, and is it still relevant in their time, or should they change with the time? And that's the overarching issue of this series. Of course, there are these daddy issue type things, where the kids are like feeling the neglect of their parents for so long, and that goes for all the children of all the heroes. And I guess that's just sort of the thing with heroes and putting them on a pedestal, and you know, they're still people and they just actually can't handle multiple things at once, and yeah, it gets pretty complex real fast. So another key point to the story of this the first season of Jupiter's Legacy is they're trying to solve the mystery of this character Black Star, because at the start of the season of this series, you see him getting captured and being sent to this maximum security facility, and at the end of episode 1 he escapes and it turns out to be a clone, and now they're trying to solve who cloned him, and they have a theory, of course, that their old friend who turned into a villain, Skyfox, is the big bad guy. Of course, there are a lot of twists and turns in this series. It's actually real Game of Thrones style, with the backstabbing and like a lot of the great areas with each of the characters. So now let's talk about the action, because I know that's what you're curious about, if the action is on par with MCU and the DCEU, or the boys for that matter, and to some degree it is, but a lot of there are times where the action just feels a bit clunky, and you actually when the heroes are flying, you kind of feel like they're being hoisted up by harness, which was a bit weird for me. And yeah, that was just actually one of the turn-offs for this series, is they actually made the flying look weird when the heroes were like, they feel like they're being hoisted up by harnesses. And yeah, so for the most part, the action and the powers, the way they showed it, is pretty cool. It's still pretty awesome. And yeah, aside from that little nitpick I have, it's pretty solid. So they use actually a lot of iconography from DC, and you actually get to see the iconic Superman pose when he's carrying like this car over his head, and yeah, that was so much fun to see. Actually, there are a lot of unique characters here as well. I really love the character, the son of Skyfox, I forgot his name. But yeah, Skyfox's son was just such an interesting character, Hutch, and he has a super cool power with the power rod, I think that's what he calls it, and it gives you the power to teleport to anywhere you say, or I think it follows like Nightcrawler's power, where you have to see, or I think you have to have seen the place you're teleporting to at least, or I think even if you don't see it, but yeah, it can be used offensively, because you can, if someone else is holding the power rod, he can be teleported to anywhere you want, and the power rod will return to him when he says the keywords home. I think it will return to his hand, and actually we just see it used in so many interesting ways in just the first season, and definitely we would love to see how he uses it in the future. And for the most part, I think it's gonna be Ex Machina because that thing is just overpowered, when you can just kill anyone just by sending a metal rod to their heart. And yeah, that was just super fun to see. So yeah, again, one of the biggest downside to this series is I think it's going to be the flashback scenes, because the first half of that was just super boring and just a lot of exposition and backstory and the Great Depression, America, and the crash of the stock market and all that. And that's not why you were watching a superhero movie. You just want to see their origin story But yeah, they tried to make it a little bit more complex, and that could be dragging sometimes. But I promise you guys, it does get better, especially the later half of the series after they've gone through all the boring flashback parts, and they're actually on the island exploring, and that's a whole story arc in itself, which was amazing. And yeah, that was just such a fun journey, especially where you see utopian Sheldon trying to convince people that he's not crazy. And yeah, that was just super fun to watch. So overall, Jupiter's Legacy is definitely pale in comparison to The Boys and Invincible, and I do recommend you watch Jupiter's Legacy after you watch The Boys and Invincible, because those are definitely so much better than this one. Although Jupiter's Legacy does hold its ground, and it has an amazing story, and if they're basing it fully on the comics, I think there are a lot of more interesting things to come with this series. Although I haven't personally read the entire comics, I've seen a little bit of snippets or pages from the comics, and those are definitely interesting, and I would love to see how those scenes would translate into TV. And maybe when we get to those parts, maybe we can say that it's actually on par with The Boys, because it's just gonna be super gory and fun to watch. So yeah, with regards to the overly boring backstory, it does pay off in the end, because there are a lot of interesting plot twists that develop from those exposition, from the early exposition, and from the relationships and the feuds that have been formed from the beginning, and you see it develop and corrupt these heroes in the end. So yeah, we won't go through all of that, but I'm just saying the ending was just super mind-blowing, and yeah, you won't really see it coming until it's there, and that was just part of the fun and the hype of Jupiter's Legacy, and we're excited for season 2. So again, definitely Jupiter's Legacy is at my top 5 at the moment of these superhero TV series. It's up there with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, The Boys, Invincible, although it's an animated series, but it's, you know, it's still gritty, and it's still like an alternate DCEU universe, which is just super fun to watch. It never gets old, actually. And they actually try to develop super interesting storylines with those darker characters or darker versions of like Superman and all that. So definitely we're gonna give Jupiter's Legacy a good 7 out of 10. It's just super fun to watch. The story is super interesting, and we're dying to see where each of these characters end up, because most of the main characters at least are just super interesting, and also the anti-heroes, the bad guys, there are a lot of gray area, and that was just super fun to watch. We are just excited again to see where each of these characters go, and if they follow some of the things, the darker paths in the comics. And we're interested to see how those scenes will translate to TV and to Netflix and into our eyeballs. So yeah, have you seen Jupiter's Legacy? What do you guys think? What do you guys think of the flashbacks? Were you as bored as us? And please comment it down below in the comments section. And yeah, sadly that's the end of this video. Please don't forget to hit that like button. It really does help us out. And if you're new and if you appreciate what we're doing here, please do give that subscribe button and that notification bell button some love by giving it some love taps, tappy tap tap, so you'll be notified of our next videos. And once again, it's me, your bearded bro, QuickSilver 15, signing off.